Hi, welcome to Rachie OT Mum. I am meant to film this morning, but I'm really not on top of today, so I'm going to give it a go now. I don't know what you might hear in the background. I've got children playing, so let's hope we can do this without interruptions. So anyway, what I decided to talk about today was it's October now, and in South Africa the school year runs from January to December. So I've had a lot of parents contact me and ask me about school readiness. And there are three main things that they ask me. So I thought I'd go through those today, what those things are and what my response is. This is by no means an exhaustive piece on school readiness at all. And there are other professionals who can weigh in and are far more suited to it than I am. But this is just, these are the things that I get asked and how I respond to them. So hopefully it will help you if you're having the same questions. The first thing, so in South Africa, you do your reception year when you are 5 years old, turning 6, and then you do your grade 1 year when you are 6 years old, turning 7. And a lot of schools do school readiness assessment to see if you're ready to go into grade 1 or where there will be difficulties that you can be supported and that sort of thing. Because schooling becomes much more formal then. There are a lot of questions around whether children will manage the classroom environment, the changes, the transition, all of that. So the first question I get actually is well, if my child is very bright and is born at the beginning of the year, so January, February, March, April even, if my child is very bright, is it better to put them into grade 1 a year early? So when essentially they are 5, turning 6, even though they are turning 6 at the beginning of the year, they are still in the younger age band. So my response to that is that it's important to remember it's not just about academic performance. And those bands, you have to draw a margin somewhere. And yes, a child born in January and a child born in December of the previous year are going to be very similar, but you have to draw the bands somewhere. And the child's brain is developing and changing so much at a young age that the development that can happen in the span of 1 year is quite significant. And those age bands are set out not only from an academic and a learning perspective, but also from a developmental perspective. So the South African curriculum, or any curriculum around the world really, and different countries, children go to school at different ages. But in South Africa, the curriculum is designed in such a way that he's completely thrown. Next, can you stop shouting, please, my boy? Motherhood. He's gone outside. Okay. So the curriculum has been designed in such a way that children within that band will all be of a similar developmental stage. So although your child might be very bright and might cognitively be, picking up the concepts really well, they still have all their social emotional learning and development. They have their language milestones, their motor milestones, gross and fine motor milestones, all their perception, their auditory perception, their visual perception. It's still developing, and that's developmental. It can't be sort of sped up. So you essentially, what you're doing, if you're putting your bright child a year early into school, is that you're asking them to take on challenges developmentally that they may not actually be ready for. So although very bright, what might happen is they won't have the success that they would have had if they were developmentally ready. And so you sort of create the situation where they start off with a bit of a self-esteem issue because, again, they are bright, so they can see what the children around them are doing. So my advice would always be not to put your child into school early. There's something else quite significant about it, and that is that a good teacher should be trained and should be skilled at meeting the needs of the whole spectrum of children in her class, and so, or his class, and so should be able to create work that is engaging for the very bright students. So doing a year in grade R for a very bright child, even though academically they might be ahead of their peers, a teacher should be able to extend tasks and grade tasks to support that child. Okay, so that's the first question I get asked. Shall I send my child to school early? My child's very bright. Would it be a good thing? So obviously you have to look at each situation, but my advice would be don't. Rather send your child in the age band that the curriculum suggests. The second question that I get asked a lot is what are the grounds for not sending your child? When would you consider not sending your child to grade 1 if they were in the right age group? Like, is it if they're not good with numbers? Is it because they're not grasping concepts? Is it because they haven't got their fine motor skills or their hand dominance developed enough? So a lot of parents want to know that, especially with children that may already be having occupational therapy. They want to know, will my child be ready for grade 1? And in my experience, where possible, children should be in the grade that they should be in. And I know it makes it hard for the team around the child because they can't be in the grade they should be in if they don't have the support that they need. But if it is a learning difficulty or an academic difficulty, or even if it is that they, it's a developmental delay or sort of weaker areas of development that they are getting OT for or speech and language therapy for, my advice is generally that the child should go to grade 1, but that they should have the team around them supporting them. So whether it is referrals to a pediatrician if it's concentration problems, or an educational psychologist if you're worried about a specific learning difficulty, whether it's remedial support or therapeutic support from a psychologist or a speechy or an OT, it is better for the child to go into the year and just be given the correct support. It's not actually good enough to say, we'll just give them another year in grade R and then they'll be a bit older and so they'll manage. So school is about learning and teaching, and we all learn and teach, and we all learn at different paces and different stages, and we all have different starting points. And children should be accommodated as much as possible from the starting point that they're at in the age group that they need to be in. So there are times that children do need to be kept back to repeat grade R. And it's not as much about repeating grade R or being a year older as much as it is about having some more time to remediate the difficulties that, as a foregone conclusion, will stop them from learning in grade 1. And there are two main areas for that. And the one is language development. If the child has a significant language development problem, and they've been seeing a speech and language therapist, and there's a significant language problem, then putting the child into grade 1 with just additional support is going to be very hard. The child cannot learn if the child does not know what's going on in the classroom around it. So if there is a developmental language problem that is significant enough, then there is grounds there to look at keeping the child in grade R, and rather doing as much support there in a more play-based environment, where learning is much more concrete, where learning is much more multisensory than going into the more formal setting of the grade 1 classroom, where language is relied on that much more. So that's the one time. The other time that I would really consider it is if there's a significant social emotional difficulty. And again, this is not just about them having another year to mature in grade R, although another year there will be maturity with that, but it's around giving them the support they need to develop their emotional processing and regulation and self-regulation. And the truth is that you cannot learn when you are in a state of fight or flight or fright. the cortex stops working. You can't. You are unable to learn. It's not possible. So if a child has significant self-regulation problems, they're going to be sitting in a grade 1 classroom not learning anyway. So in that sense, it's better to get professionals involved and support the child earlier on, before they go up to grade 1. So those would be my guidelines around when. Obviously, you look at every situation differently, and every situation is unique, and the support that can be given to children is different in different contexts. But in the ideal context, that would be what I would recommend. Okay, then so the first one was if my child's really bright, born at the beginning of the year. The second one was when is it valuable to keep a child back, and then the last one, just quickly before I get called away, is my child is born at the end of the year and his or her report is not very strong. Should I keep my child back and just give them another year in grade R, just so that, when they go into grade 1, they're rather at the sort of, the strongest in the class rather than being in the weakest in the class. And again, it's a difficult one, and every situation has to be weighed up. But in my experience, it's better to put the child in the age year that they are, the age band that they are going to be, that they're meant to be in. Remember that with every year, that developmental difference decreases. So because the brain is changing less rapidly. So although it might seem like quite a stark difference in grade R between your baby's born in January and your baby's born in December, that will begin to even out, as development happens. And I think that the challenges of being a younger child in the class, there are other resilience qualities that come from that, and so if there are not significant difficulties, then it's worth your child being in the peer age group that they are in. That's the age group that they'll play sport in. It's the age, if they play sport, it's the age group that they will get their driver's license in. It's the age of, so it's it's advised that they are within the age group. Also, if a child for some reason does need to repeat later on in life, they'll then be another year older, and things happen, accidents happen, children get sick, they stay off school, academic problems later on, that more time is needed, that sort of thing. So I would advise again that if you can support the child going in, and just make sure that you're giving the child enough support, then going into grade 1 in the year band they should be in is the best option. So I hope that answered some questions for some of you. I've had quite a few people contacting me about it, so I thought, I know it's only a specific few of you I'm speaking to, but hope it sort of got you all thinking. And please let me know if you have any questions. I would love to hear them, and I would love to have an opportunity to answer them. And it was great chatting again, and we weren't too interrupted. So see you again next week.